Crafting for the tabletop always involves a bit of problem solving, especially if you're trying to stick to a budget. Sometimes it's wise to rely on tools or materials that aren't specifically made for the miniature hobby. Now, after over 2 years on YouTube, I've crafted plenty and gained a good bit of experience. So let me show you 4 weird things I absolutely cannot craft without. For in-scale rock formations, bark chips are an incredibly quick and effective way to achieve a realistic rocky surface. Whether you're adding them to a base or a larger terrain piece, there's really no faster way to get natural-looking rocks at almost no costs. If you're near a forest, park, or anywhere with a few trees, you can probably gather these easily. Just be sure to collect them after a string of dry days, as they're much easier to handle and work with when completely dry. I, however, went ahead and bought a big sack of these from an online shop that sells them for garden decorations or indoor plants. So yeah, I basically bought a big sack of dirt, but I'm pretty sure it'll last me a lifetime, or at least as long as the wood stays usable. I also tend to put these wood pieces in the oven for about 20 minutes to kill any potential parasites that might have infested the wood. It's a tip I picked up from terrarium hobbyists, who recommended doing this at around 100 degrees Celsius. Since we're not trying to recreate a biome, I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary, especially because I also like to seal the entire bark with either PVA or, for small pieces, superglue. Sealing helps secure any loose bits and makes the bark much sturdier, which is especially useful for gaming pieces. Still, if you decide to bake these beforehand, please don't leave the oven unattended. While 100 degrees Celsius isn't hot enough to ignite the wood, it's always best to be cautious. So please do this only with the utmost care and vigilance. Adding these to a base or a terrain piece is as straightforward as it gets. As I mentioned, you can use PVA or superglue, but hot glue or construction adhesive works just as well. It's wood after all, so anything that works for gluing wood pieces will work for this too. Now you may be asking, how am I supposed to glue my plastic or metal miniatures to a material like wood? Well, this is where Florist Wire comes into play. It's my go-to material for pinning models. But what is pinning? Well, it's simple. Just drill a small hole into the underside of the model, then insert a piece of Florist Wire and secure it with superglue or even 2-part epoxy. This creates an additional point of attachment, resulting in a much more durable and stress-resistant connection, ideal for gaming pieces that see frequent handling. Another bonus tip for all the kit bashers and terrain crafters out there: take a piece of Florist Wire, bend it in the middle like this, and twist it a few times. You'll get a wonderful in-scale rope. It's a great detail to add extra realism and character to your crafts. If you know my previous videos, you might be wondering why I'm focusing on materials in this video instead of a specific project. Simply put, I wanted to give you a clear, concise video that shares useful information you typically find scattered across multiple of my videos. I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, as I plan to make more of these alongside my regular project showcases. This new format is part of my effort to release videos more frequently and regularly. Recently I became a freelance editor, so I'm balancing paid projects, which help fund my channel and cover my living expenses, with making these videos. So if you'd like to support me, feel free to check out my Patreon, where I share behind the scenes updates and special Patreon exclusive versions of these videos. Again, if you're an avid viewer of my channel, you may have noticed that Tigro is one of my absolute go-to materials for crafting brick structures like houses, ruins, or simple walls. I'll cover this in more detail in a separate video, and to keep it short, I like to use it, well, as grout. So basically I'm using it for its intended purpose, just on a much smaller scale. To do this, I simply mix it with water and a bit of PVA. The resulting mushy texture allows me to wipe it off unwanted areas, like these brick surfaces, right after application. Just like grouting tiles in real life. It's also great to use on 3D printed walls or runes, which often have very noticeable layer lines that honestly bother me. With this paste you can easily hide at least the most obvious ones. I'd only recommend making the paste a bit firmer by either reducing the water or adding more grout. Another great way to use Tigro is in combination with basing sand. When you're basing miniatures or adding ground texture to terrain, using simple fine sand is a basic and affordable method. Applying it with PVA is probably one of the first techniques most people learn when starting out with miniatures. By mixing Tigro directly with the sand before application, you create an even stronger bond. Plus it adds a bit more variety to grid size, enhancing the texture overall. Now this is practically an invisible champion in almost every project. Isopropyl alcohol is primarily a cleaning and disinfection solution, but it has a range of other useful applications too. Beyond the occasional cleanup for surfaces, airbrushes or mixing cups, this stuff really shines when you're working with pigments. After applying, pigments just sit on the surface since they aren't actually fixed to the model. That changes though if you lightly spray or dust the model with isopropyl alcohol afterward. The alcohol mixes with the powder, and as it evaporates, it helps the pigments adhere more strongly to the surface. Isopropyl alcohol also breaks surface tension, allowing pigments to flow effortlessly into crevices, textures and fine details. This effect is also useful for adding sand or flock to models or terrain pieces. When applying flock with PVA, it's a good idea to remove any excess and then add watered down PVA for a stronger bond. If you spray the area with a bit of isopropyl alcohol beforehand, you can take advantage of the resulting broken surface tension. This makes your PVA water mix spread more evenly and also let it seep deeper into the surface, enhancing adhesion. I hope you enjoyed this short excursion into some of the materials I use for tabletop crafting. As I mentioned, I plan to sprinkle in more videos like this to keep the content coming more frequently. Please let me know what you think, or if you have any suggestions for crafting materials you'd like me to cover in this series. I hope to see you in the next one, and until then, farewell, fellow adventurers.